I'll kick things off with the sleepers. So my number 5 sleeper, and this is more for PPR than anything, but I do like him in standard as well, is Anthony Miller, receiver for the Bears. He really took a big step last year in the second half of the season. You look at his stats; they really increased, and it was based on what his receivers coach said. It was just a better preparation for games, and he kind of like learned how to be in the NFL. He's a young receiver, so he improved that way. And his receivers coach said he continued that work ethic into this year. I also like the fact that Nick Foles is probably going to start for the Bears. Mitchell Trubisky is, he's obviously going to scramble more than Nick Foles. So every time Trubisky scrambles, that's a potential target taken away from Miller. Foles is going to pass more, and Foles likes targeting slot receivers more. So I think Miller could have a nice season, especially in PPR leagues. His average draft position is 12-10. So I think he's a nice bargain there.
Nice. I like Anthony Miller too. He's not on my list, but definitely like him. And and the GOAT is throwing to him, so that'll be great.
That's right.
You need at least one Nick Foles promotional comment per podcast. That's the quota. All right. So hey, so I've got my top list. I actually got really fast. I forgot. I got 3 more honorable mentions. I forgot them on my list. Okay, really quick. I got Robbie Anderson. Love him. He's going 12th or 13th round. I think it's a great Deshaun Jackson. If he's healthy, I love him. He's going like 12th to 13th round. A lot of drafts. I like him as like a shot. And then and Eno Benjamin, running back for the Arizona Cardinals. I read some scouting reports on him, so watch some highlights with him from Arizona State. He looks like a really shifty running back. I don't like Chase Edmunds much at all. Rewatching 2019 season, I think he's just the guy. And Drake. I don't know if we can trust Drake to stay healthy and be the guy as well. So if that offense is good, and a lot of us think the Cardinals will be good, I think Eno Benjamin's the guy that you could take a look at. So I forgot I had more honorable mentions. So I just got to get it out there on the record. All right. So here's my number 5 actual sleeper for the year. It's Preston Williams, wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins. I absolutely love this guy. He was the best receiver for 8 games on the Dolphins. And at first you thought maybe it's just garbage time. No, he's really good route runner, and he has that thing that just translates well to the NFL. And so Keenan Allen has that kind of guy, has that thing. Amari Cooper has it. There's some guys that just know how to get open, and it doesn't matter what the situation is. If you can get open, you're going to catch some balls in the NFL. He's like a 12th or 13th round pick. He's 6'5". I don't know about the athleticism, but if you can run routes, you're 6'5". You're gonna score some touchdowns in the NFL. And so, he's coming off an ACL, but I love him as a player. If he's healthy, it would not surprise me if this guy finishes as like a wide receiver 3 in most league formats. I absolutely love him. I'm pretty much drafting him at the end of drafts. Pretty much at every league I've been in, I'm drafting Preston Williams. So he's my number 5 sleeper.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I love Preston Williams. He just missed the cut for me, along with another triumvirate of receivers in Curtis Samuel, Christian Kirk, and one more name who's escaping me at this moment. But I like a lot of receiver sleepers this year, but I'm actually focusing on other positions with my top 5 because I think there's so much receiver value in fantasy drafts. Coming in at number 5 is Bryce Love for me. I just think Washington just doesn't have an answer at running back. Like Adrian Peterson is a fine stopgap, and he might end up, starting for most of this year. But I think eventually Ron Rivera and Scott Turner are going to want to see what they have in Antonio Gibson and Bryce Love. And I think Gibson will be on the field first as a receiving back, but he only had 33 carries in total during his college career. Bryce Love back in 2017 had 2,118 rushing yards and finished second in the Heisman voting. If he doesn't get banged up as a senior or just declares for the draft, like Walt mentioned earlier, he probably goes in the first round. He's had plenty of time to get healthy. Washington did the right thing, letting him sit out his rookie year. He's had like a year and a half to recover from that injury. He should be 100%. He's looked good at training camp by all accounts. And, if Peterson gets banged up or is slow out of the gate, or if they just want to give him fewer carries, Love's probably going to be more of the between the tackles guy. So I like him. He's going like around the 13th to 15th rounds. So you can just grab him late as a potential, handcuff, or this guy might pan out. So I would get my hands on him in as many formats as I can. I missed out on him in a best ball draft, and I was kicking myself for that. But I did land Preston Williams in that one. So
Nice.
Loading up on some of our favorite sleepers there.
Yeah, I hope Bryce Love recovers. It was a sad story that his draft stock just plummeted because of that injury. So hopefully he's okay, and I'd love to see him have a good year. Also, Preston Williams is almost on my honorable mention. He's actually above some of the receivers I talked about, but I had a feeling Kenny was going to mention Preston Williams because he drafted him in our recent fantasy mock draft. All right, my number 4, and so Kenny and I, we've been friends since 1999. We sat together in the same class as senior year where I created my website, and ironically enough, he's the web host, so I don't know. That's kind of weird how things turn out, but we always have had arguments throughout the years about certain players, and this is our latest one. My number 4 is Chase Edmunds. Kenny just said he doesn't like Chase Edmunds. I like Chase Edmunds a lot. He didn't have that much playing time last year because he was behind a couple guys, notably David Johnson and Kenny and Drake. But when Chase Edmunds got his opportunity, especially in the Giants game, he was terrific. I thought he looked very good. And Cliff Kingsbury, I think, agrees with me. He called him a starting running back in the NFL. And given that Kenny and Drake has never handled the full workload in his playing career, not just NFL but Alabama as well. He always split carries in Alabama. I think there's a decent chance Chase Edmunds gets some starts this year and maybe becomes the starting running back toward the end of the season. And I think that's a good thing for his fantasy outlook because Arizona running backs, they catch a ton of passes from Kyler Murray. So I'm a big fan of Chase Edmunds. So I guess we'll see whether Kenny or I happens to be correct this time.
It's funny. So we're like-minded here in that we're both thinking that offense is going to throw a lot to the running back, and we expect some production there. And we're both thinking that we're not confident that Drake is going to be able to be the guy. So we agree. I don't know about Eno Benjamin. I don't know that he's a great player, but I watched Chase Edmonds, and I think he doesn't have the open field quickness and movement that I think makes a great running back. So that makes me be willing to take a shot on the next guy, which may or may not turn out. So I watched Chase Edmonds. I'm not as impressed, but I think we agree. I would be shocked if Drake ends up being a great fantasy running back for us. You may hear his name later in this podcast. So I will tell you my next sleeper on my list. I don't think anyone who knows me or has listened to the pod for a while will be super shocked. It's number 4. It's the only tight end on this list. It's Dallas Goedert. I don't understand Dallas Goedert's draft stock at this point. Dallas Goedert was the 10th best tight end in most fantasy formats in 2019, which makes him a starting fantasy tight end, like in any format. Like you can still start him even though he's not the number 1 tight end on his team. Even if Zach Ertz never gets injured, Dallas Goedert would still outperform his current draft position. He's currently being drafted in the 12th or 13th round. He's easily going to return value on that spot. Now, if Zach Ertz were to get hurt, God forbid, I'm an Eagles fan, so I don't want that. But if Zach Ertz were to get hurt, Dallas, if news came out today that Zach Ertz tore his ACL in training camp today, where would Dallas Goedert be drafted? Like he would soar up the boards, right? And so I think that the fact that Goedert is being drafted where he's at, like he's going to return the value even if nothing happens. And again, if Ertz were to get hurt, God forbid, then you all of a sudden you possibly have like a top 3 tight end in the NFL on your team, potentially. Like that's the kind of talent you get. The fact that he's being drafted behind lots of other guys, he's being drafted behind guys I think he's superior to, is just very weird to me. So Dallas Goedert will be a tight end on lots of my teams. He's my fourth sleeper.
Yeah, I think Goedert is a good bet at tight end for sure. I think a lot of people just overlook him because they see Zach Ertz and they just don't think like he could possibly have done well. And then halfway through the season, someone realizes that on waivers and is like, why is this guy still available, and scoops him up? But he should be drafted in most leagues, but he probably won't be. So I could definitely see backing him. But I'm going with a guy from my hometown team for the 4th spot. I'm going with Cam Newton. I know he hasn't technically won the starting job in New England yet, but I have no faith in Jarrett Stidham. I've said this many a time on this podcast. I never saw the pocket presence there with him. And I think the move to sign Newton was just kind of hey, Stidham's not going to be ready. And I think if Newton is healthy and he can run the ball a little bit, he could end up being, maybe a top 10 fantasy quarterback. He's not being drafted as such. I mean, he's been in the available in like the 11th to 13th round of most of our mocks. Granted, quarterbacks get pushed down in those, but I think he could really pan out. Josh McDaniels will be able to get the most out of him. I know there's some concerns about the team's lack of receiving weapons, so that would be something to keep an eye on. But, James White coming out of the backfield can take some of the pressure off him there. And I just think if Newton gets into the red zone, Belichick and McDaniels are not going to be afraid to kind of pound the rock with him a little bit. So I think he'll be a big touchdown threat. So he's a guy, I may not draft him as a starter just because, there's still questions about his health. If there was a preseason, we'd have a lot more of a assurance about that. But I would pick him as a potential streamer to play in week 1 against the Dolphins. Or if you're drafting 2 quarterbacks, and you end up with, say, like Deshaun Watson in the middle rounds, like we have sometime, and you want to just handcuff Newton because he's the best player on the board, I'd say go for it, because if the more quarterback talent you have, the better your op you are trying to trade at the position. Of course, you can play the opposite strategy. Both work. But yeah, Newton's a dude I will be watching very closely when the season opens.
I love both those picks, both Goedert and Newton.